Welcome on, welcome all. Thank you for tuning in to Cedarly Radio, your guide to films playing at the Art House for the week of May 3rd to May 9th. My name is Aaron Spears.
And I'm Dave Huffman. On this week's episode, we'll be discussing Ask Dr. Ruth, Hesburgh, The Chaperone, Sunset, and Her Smell.
We'll also be discussing, explaining that juggalos are real to those patrons unfamiliar with the Insane Clown Posse, the Cannes Film Festival lineup for this year. We may be the only film podcast not discussing Endgame, and our Cedarly 3 picks for favorite self-destructive characters. We always like to start off the show with the last scene first. So, Dave, what is the last film you've seen?
I saw a really good documentary as I'm working on programming our Pride series for the Capitol for this June, and it's called Changing the Game by Michael Barnett. It just played at the Tribeca Film Festival, and it's all about following 3 trans high school athletes as they, struggle for rights to compete in the appropriate gender as they define themselves. So it's a very compelling film, and I'm hoping that we will be showing it in June. So keep checking our website, and the Capitol will hopefully be playing it as part of the Pride series. Yeah.
Is that was it one specific sport, or was it different sports?
It's different sports. One's Norwegian skier. One's a wrestler. The other ones are track. So yeah, it's following different
international then as well.
No, it's all in here in the States. Yeah, it's all
you said Norwegian. I just assumed it was in Norway.
No. Okay. It's like she refers to it as like Norwegian downhill skiing or something.
Oh, that's
like
the style.
Like
Gotcha.
And yeah, she's in one girl's in New Hampshire, another one's in I can't even remember the other states. But yeah, so they're different parts of the U.S. as I think the other one's in like Arizona or something like that. So yeah.
So the skiing's probably not in Arizona.
No, that one's in New Hampshire.
Gotcha.
Yes, the Granite State. And Aaron, what's the last film you saw?
Mine is High Life.
Oh, High
Life. Here at the theater.
Mm-hmm.
That is a movie that can definitely be spoiled, which I do have no intention of doing. But after seeing it now, I'm really surprised we're not having more walkouts, I guess, because one of the employees here at the theater, she saw it and did walk out, but she went into it as we were kind of just discussing before we hit record.
What a great way to help push it.
No, but it's one of those like she didn't know what she was getting into.
Yeah,
it's one of those where she had heard a little bit about it. I can't remember if she watched the trailer or not, but she was like, "Oh, it's like an erotic thriller." Robert Pattinson. Yeah. They're like orbiting the planet. I was like, "Whoa!" Like some of those words apply, but make sure you read the synopsis. Know the direct. Know what you're getting into. It is not. I mean, that stuff is there, but it's not.
No, it is
that movie.
I agree that it's definitely, I could see it as being a love it or hate kind of movie.
Sure.
I think, and again, you're right that a lot of times people come to see things and aren't fully aware, or they don't pay attention. Like if you're at all sensitive to sexual content, read why it's rated R, because it's a lot about sex.
Like I mentioned in the previous episode about there's certain people that show up and we're just like, what are you showing? And then that's when they pick right then. It's like, I just don't watch movies that way. But I mean, to me though, like it depends on your sensibility. Like if you're interested in just did
you like the movie?
I loved it. Yeah. I absolutely loved it. It's near the top of my list for this year so far. Mm-hmm. It's very early, and I'm not really starting that list publicly yet, but it's has some challenging moments. Like you said, it is very frank in its depiction of sexuality, although it's a very specific kind of mostly focused on bodily fluids.
Right? Yeah, it's
not erotic.
Yeah, it is not a sexy movie.
No, not at all. There are sexy people in the movie, but they're not being sexy.
It is not
a
sensual film.
No. But it's very meditative, and there was 2 movies that it brought to mind immediately as I was watching it, which is probably going to open up too much of a discussion for the show right now, but it really reminded me of Pusher 3, I'm the Angel of Death, and also There Will Be Blood.
Oh.
And There Will Be Blood, it's like the father-son dynamic, or father-child, I should say, in this one, because it's not a son, dynamic, and kind of really makes you question, to me, it was like, wow, should some people be
parents?
So that was the There Will Be Blood one, but then the Pusher...
I ask that question every time I go out into public area.
Well, yeah, I mean, you should just stop going to Walmart. Then the Pusher 3 one was like, it really does give you an interesting vibe of just like, we're just a sack of meat. Yeah. Sentient meat walking around, sometimes just...
Sentient Meat is my new favorite fictional band name.
It's from True Detective Season 1. But just that idea of just like what it means to be human, and like even just procreating and continuing the species when you're in space heading towards a black hole. It's a convict colony. You're like, man, it gets you some meditating on some pretty heavy themes there. But also I thought it was just a fun watch too. Like I could rewatch that movie almost any time.
It's a beautiful movie.
It's a beautiful movie. Yeah.
I liked it quite a bit.
So at the Art House this week, there's I think we mentioned on the show before, you get in weird conversations based on the content of like High Life, the content of the films that we're showing here. I had to explain to too many retirees this weekend about how the juggalos are a real thing, who the Insane Clown Posse is, and what was going on around the film family. And people really like it. And they weren't, turned up by it or anything. They were, even, again, some of these retirees came out, they're like, oh, such a charming little movie. Yeah. And I was like, I'm really glad you liked it. And they're like, so, and then the one lady was like, oh, you haven't seen it? And I was like, no, I haven't seen it. She's like, well, there's like these people that wear clown makeup and they gather in this outdoor venues to like just celebrate life. And I was like, the juggalos? She's like, yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, it's like, no, it's a real thing, and I had to,
that's funny that they just thought it was a device
for the movie, yeah.
That is hilarious.
So it's like, if you're at the local library, see if they have a CD, check out the Insane Clown Posse, why not? And broaden your horizons.
If only people actually do that, that would be fantastic. And I know we had at least one person show up in Juggalo makeup on opening day of the movie.
Yes, I was off on vacation that week, but I did hear that, and I was like, all right.
Yeah, it was my friend Matt. He did it sort of as a joke just for me, and he said, what if I show up in Juggalo makeup and then I'll stay around and watch that? So,
all right.
But he said after the show that people enjoyed that he was I guess people in the theater were talking to him about afterwards. So, yeah.
It definitely became immediate folklore, because I don't think they recognized who it was, which most of the employees know him. And I heard the rumors of like, there was a Juggalo out. I'm like, well, I'm not surprised. They're in the movie, so why would that be a surprise?
It was a sort of an ironic Juggalo. So,
yeah.
There you go.
But still. And Amazing Grace is still, I had a gentleman was out last night for his third time.
Wow.
Seeing Amazing Grace, the Aretha Franklin concert film.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking, was that 2 weeks ago then? We did like concert or music docs.
Music docs.
And then immediately, I don't know if you noticed, but immediately they became this kind of trending thing in the streaming world with Guava Island and what was the Beyonce one? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, oh. We were so timely. We were just like 1 week off on that one.
Yep. And did you have any people talking much about Wild Nights with Emily? Is that one that people were?
Yeah, I mean, they're still kind of chugging. There's a couple of like movie meetup groups that they all hit that one this weekend for some reason. Like this is a. Yeah. Was that a week out, or I'm all lost? Yeah. I was off for a week, and now I'm all discombobulated on when things came out.
It just opened.
Just opened. Yes. So yeah. There were few people that were saying, it's like, well. You hear that in the lobby afterwards, like how true was that? And then it's fascinating just even to see some of the elderly regulars. They're just like get out their phone immediately and they're just right on Wikipedia and they're like, well, I'll be, kind of.
Turns out she was a lesbian.
Gosh, look at that. But I'm constantly surprised by people at this point, even in Molly Shannon's career, like, oh, she's a really good actress. Right. And it was like you were even mentioning on what was our list when you did Year of the Dog?
Yeah, for activist films.
Activist films, which is like not necessarily a recent film. I mean, it's in the last like 6-7 years, I guess.
So, maybe. Yeah, but, I don't even know.
No, she's been doing like really interesting work for a long time. Just pay attention.
Her episode of the TV show Hannibal is one of the best episodes.
Oh, that is amazing. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So she does some really
cool, got chops,
strange things. Yeah. She's much more than just superstar,
Right.
She's doing some cool stuff.
Do people even recognize that reference at this point now? I don't know. There's a couple bits of Art House news to talk about real quick before we get into the films that are opening this week. The Cannes Film Festival announced their lineup for 2019, which it's one of those, like, it's more worth talking about that festival and other festivals afterwards when you have some buzz and people have seen it. But wanted to give a quick shout out to, local hero, Jim Jarmusch, is his new film. Oh my God, I'm totally...
The Dead Don't Die.
Thank you. The Dead Don't Die is the opening night film this year at the festival and also in competition, which doesn't necessarily always happen with the opening night films.
And that'll be coming here in mid-June. I think it's either June 14th or the 21st. I'm not sure which of those dates they're going to land on, but it's mid-June.
Coming soon. So were you excited this year when you saw the lineup? There's a new Almodovar film.
I'm very excited for Pain and Glory, I believe it's called. Yeah, I love Almodovar, so I'm very excited for that. And there's, a new Nicholas Winding Refn film that's playing. And there's
it's a TV show.
Well, it's a TV show, yes. It's the Amazon thing that he's doing. But yes, but the fact that that's even screening as part of it shows that they're expanding a little bit of...
Yeah.
And obviously, if they're playing in Cannes, it has to be considered as a film. They wouldn't just be playing it.
Right, because their whole battle with Netflix over the last couple of years is interesting that they selected that.
Just like how, Mulholland Drive was originally supposed to be a TV show, and then David Lynch decided to do something else.
Yeah.
So maybe there's like a film version of this that would be expanded.
Or the pilot is like almost a standalone kind
film.
Of movie in that case.
Yeah, there's a lot of really, major filmmakers, as always, for the Cannes Film Festival. So
Terrence Malick is also in there and a few others. But so once there's some buzz, we can report back a bit more in content there. We will be right back with the massive opening this weekend. 5 brand new films coming to the theater. First special event to let you know about is it is the first Saturday of the month. So that means we are showing the Rocky Horror Picture Show on May 4th. We'll say technically at 11:59 p.m. on Saturday just to avoid the confusion, which does still happen on occasion.
I know. And then we're also playing this week as part of the Melt Bar and Grilled Late Shift, Plan 9 from Outer Space. This is Ed Wood's classic So Bad It's a Masterpiece movie. We just talked about a couple of weeks ago, I think, on our biopic things about Ed Wood, the movie. This is the film that kind of solidified his iconic status, and we're showing it on May 4th at 9:30 and midnight, and then on Sunday, May 5th at 7 o'clock. And if you've never experienced Plan 9 with an audience on the big screen, it's a lot of fun. And this week we're opening 5 films here at the Cedar Lee. The first one we're going to talk about is Ask Dr. Ruth by Ryan White. It's a new documentary about Dr. Ruth Westheimer, America's foremost sex expert, and as she's approaching her 90th birthday.
This television program contains explicit sexual language and may not be suitable for all viewers. The host is Dr. Ruth K. Westheimer.
Before I started to do television, the most important thing for me was education. While I was studying, I was a single mother. I got a position at Planned Parenthood, and I loved it. I never compromised, even when it was not popular.
Ruth, I'm placing you under arrest.
Are there parts of your past that you don't like to talk about?
Of course.
She's had a lot of tragedies in her life.
Having been raised with no family around, there was no place on earth for me.
She was a young child living in Frankfurt, Germany, when the Nazis came to power.
Because of my background as a German Jewish refugee, I had a sensitivity for the people who were regarded as subhuman.
Dave, this one is I'm a very sex positive person and all that, and I was like, oh, she's an interesting person, but like I've heard her speak before. Yeah. I've seen, I don't think necessarily documentaries, but like she had her own TV shows. I feel it was like I don't know if I necessarily need this documentary. Then I read her Wikipedia page.
Oh,
holy crap!
Yeah, she's a fascinating
person. Her life
person.
is amazing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see someday when they make the kind of biopic about Dr. Ruth, because I think there will be one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because her life, I mean, her parents were killed in the Holocaust, and, she just escaped to Switzerland, and, it's a fascinating childhood, and then just...
Trained as a sniper in the military?
Yeah, I mean...
Like, what?
Yeah, she's an amazing person who literally... changed the entire country in the 80s by doing this little radio show at midnight in New York that became such a kind of like cult hit that it grew into this gigantic wave. And so, I mean, the impact of Dr. Ruth can't be underestimated. Yeah. And the fact that she is a workaholic at 90 plus years old now, I mean, she literally is nonstop. She just does not stop ever. And they kind of address in the film a little bit about like, well, why doesn't she stop? Is she such a workaholic so that she doesn't have to deal with certain things from her life? Or is it just because she's just wants to keep the momentum going? Who knows? But
there's even a clip in the trailer where they're like, are there parts of your past you don't talk about? She's like,
yeah. But she's a fascinating person and just wildly charming and entertaining. So this is a documentary that I think people are really going to respond to on a lot of different levels.
It has some of the hallmarks of RBG, where
Absolutely.
like going this strong, but also like physically still maintaining her work schedule, Joan Rivers style even as well too, but also fully there mentally as well, which is obviously inspiring in its own right. But reading through the Wikipedia page, I didn't even get to the sex education stuff. I was just like amazed, like how did I not know any of this stuff in
here?
She
still teaches like multiple college courses. She has like 40 books that she's written. I mean, like it's just insane. Like the level of output that this one woman has done and contributed to America and the world is really unprecedented.
We've played two. I was looking at what has the director done, but previously, and especially with documentaries, because there's different styles of documentaries, and Ryan White's done kind of like the portrait style documentaries a few times. One of the big hits we had here for a while was Good Old Frida about the Beatles fan club. way back when. So it's definitely kind of like his wheelhouse of kind of biopic sort of documentary styles. But also that's predicated on picking the right subject matter, which this one sounds like there's a wealth of information from her life that you could have filled more than one movie with, I'm sure.
Truly.
The second film we're opening is Hesburgh, directed by Patrick Creadon. This is another documentary biography. This film gives us a look at more than 50 years of American history as seen through the eyes of Theodore Hesburgh, the longtime president of the University of Notre Dame and America's most well-known Catholic priest, educator, civil rights champion, advisor to presidents, envoy to popes, theologian, and activist.
In any list of the most influential men in American life, you'll find the predictable political leaders, commentators, and tycoons. But one name that keeps cropping up is none of those things. He advises presidents.
He was a mythic figure.
Confers with the Pope.
We heard these stories about this legend.
He is chairman of the Rockefeller Foundation.
My God, how many lives did this man live?
He is Father Theodore Martin Hesburgh, president of the University of Notre Dame.
Oh boy, here we go.
Father Hesburgh had an extraordinary ability to reach across lines.
We all ought to be protesting against many of the things we see in modern life.
I heard from some he was a very progressive liberal. From some he was a very conservative man of the cloth.
How does this compare since with Dr. Ruth? Like this has that same like biopic kind of feel that it's spanning, you know, a large swath of history from different angles as well.
This is someone that I was not familiar with though. Like this is not a name that was like, I think Dr. Ruth is like a household name. This is not someone that everyone's familiar with. So it's interesting to learn more about this person that you've never really heard of. That's always kind of been in the background in a lot of historical moments. So
those end up being some of my favorite documentaries. They have such a punch because, like you said, you're kind of going in cold. Like I didn't know this guy's name until I read the description for this movie, and then saw the preview. You're like, this is like the Forrest Gump in the background of all these different things throughout history.
It's like Zelig, you know what I mean? Yeah, like where he's just sort of like there.
He's always there.
He's
you're
always
like,
there.
I never knew that guy, but it's also it just had such an effect on society as a whole that really spans decades, but also different areas of life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the next film we're going to be opening is not a documentary. So we've got some narrative films as well this week. The first one we're going to talk about is The Chaperone by Michael Engler. And this is a film about silent film star Louise Brooks, who went to New York along with her chaperone from Kansas when she first went to study dance. And it talks about the impact both of the women had on each other's lives.
Ladies and gentlemen, Louise has recently been accepted to study dance in New York.
She can't go without a chaperone. We haven't been able to find anyone. I'd like to propose myself.
Honey, don't you think...
I would. I'd like to go.
I think we're going to have a wonderful time.
What did you think, that they were going to have their way with me in the dining car under the table?
Men don't like candy that's been unwrapped. I have not said anything funny.
This is it.
Welcome, all of you.
Look at her. She's the best. The girl's a star.
What can I do for you?
I want to learn about my birth parents, sister.
I'm afraid I can't help you with that.
I want to know who I am.
And this film is actually the director, Michael Engler. He's most known for his work on TV stuff like Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
And when you look at the poster for this movie, it honestly almost looks like it's a poster for the Downton Abbey movie coming out because it's got Elizabeth McGovern in it, and it's the total same period,
same screenwriter, same director.
It has just that total like Downton Abbey aesthetic to it.
Yeah,
and it's distributed by PBS, so it just has that kind of pedigree on it.
Yeah.
And but it's really well done. It's very well acted.
You said, it's really well done. Like Downton Abbey isn't well done?
No. That's not what I meant. But I mean, like, I don't know what I meant by that. I take back my butt. I didn't mean to qualify it. It's very well done, and it's an entertaining. It's a very fun little movie. I actually went into it with a little bit of skepticism about it.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised by how much I liked it. And I would say that it's a very probably highly fictionalized version of anything reality. I mean, yes, Louise Brooks went to New York to study dance, and yes, she had a chaperone, but the rest of it is it's just a lot of narrative fiction,
right?
And it's more about the chaperone than it is about Louise Brooks. I mean, Louise Brooks is an important character in the film, but it really is about this older woman's kind of self-discovery, getting away from a less than perfect marriage is the best way to say it.
Okay.
And no
sounds polite.
No spoiler alerts.
Right.
And going to New York, where she was like kind of reconnect with the orphanage that she was,
came from,
trying to find her birth parents and all this stuff. So it's more about her journey and her self-discovery as much as it is about Louise Brooks kind of blossoming into the, unstoppable screen icon that she was.
Right. Plus you get
I shouldn't say unstoppable because they did stop her. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. It also gives you, it's like 1920s, 30s jazz scene, New York City, flappers, prohibition, all that stuff. So that's always a really fascinating time period that you don't see in film all that much.
No, not too much anymore. You're right.
The fourth film we are opening is Sunset, directed by László Nemes. This is his second feature film, and so right out of the gate with his first feature film, Son of Saul, he won the Oscar for Best Foreign Language Film. So it's one of those, I think, expectations might be pretty high, or probably are pretty high for this one. He does another period piece, but this time he's going to a pre-World War I Budapest, where you get to see a young girl who grows up to become a strong, fearless woman heading into World War I in Budapest. Which, speaking of things that you don't really see on film all that much, I think probably because it was an anniversary year for World War I, we just had Peter Jackson's They Shall Not Grow Old, which was a massive documentary hit just massive hit. Doesn't have to be. It was a documentary, but that's not why it was a hit. I didn't mean to do unnecessary qualifications again. But being an anniversary for World War I, this seems like kind of one of those, is just one of those cultural moments where like those types of stories are going to start popping up a bit more. This, it's from his native country as well, so it's a very culturally specific, movie of this one woman's experience going through Budapest leading up to World War I.
And Budapest is so frequently used in films. A lot of movies are shot in Budapest to be other places. Like it's a city that's used for other things.
Yeah, it's like the Vancouver of Europe.
It is kind of, like a lot of movies that just take place generically in Europe and a lot of different places are shot in Budapest, whereas this one actually is like, this is Budapest and how beautiful it does look.
Yeah, and playing itself in the movie.
Yeah, it's playing itself. The final film we're opening this week is Her Smell by Alex Ross Perry. This is a film about a self-destructive punk rocker who's struggling with her sobriety and kind of realizing that she's alienated everybody in her life and has to make some changes.
Who was Becky something?
Flirt with death. I look ill, but I don't care about it.
Becky something. She's a woman. She's a user. A mother. She's a deadbeat. A person. A persona.
Do you keep up with Alex Ross Perry and his career?
I haven't necessarily, but I've seen a few of his films, and this one I think I've only seen maybe two of his other movies.
We got The Color Wheel, Listen Up, Philip.
Well, Queen of Earth, which is again with Elizabeth Moss,
right?
Which very similar kind of. He knew how to direct her in this same kind of way, I guess. Like it's another amazing performance that he's gotten out of her. So I've seen that film and I like that quite a bit. And I've seen
Golden Exits.
I did not see Golden Exits. No, I think I've seen The Color Wheel. That's the other one that I've seen.
Gotcha. Yeah, she's in Listen Up, Philip as well.
Oh, okay. Dave. Yeah, I did not see that one. And this film is kind of divided up into sort of a first act and a second act.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost get, again, I don't want to like spoil any kind of structure or surprises or things like that, but the first half of the film is really sort of her descent, and then the second half is kind of her redemption, which you get.
I mean, that's the plot synopsis on IMDb says that, so it's.
And I think that's why the film has the running time that it has, because you get two full versions of both parts of the story, and it's the best thing about this movie. It's a very good film, but the best thing and the reason to see it is honestly her performance.
Yeah,
I don't know that she'll get recognized maybe for Independent Spirits whenever those come around, but will the Oscars remember or pay attention? Is it? It's just going to be lost in the shuffle, but it is an Oscar caliber performance.
I mean, just the preview alone, you're just like, she is ferocious. I'm really looking forward to it.
I don't know what she can't do, quite frankly.
Right.
I mean, like she was great in Jordan Peele's Us earlier this year in a sort of like weirdly comedic sort of like throwaway supporting role, but then she's also just I don't want to use this term like chewing up scenery because it always sounds so negative.
Right.
But the first half of this movie, I mean, like she is just like raw crazy,
Right. I mean, that's sort of like that punk aesthetic, though.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned with like the music doc picks we had a couple weeks ago, where like you need that kind of just unbridled raw rage articulated on stage, and you get that with that kind of music.
Yeah.
And especially if you add like substance abuse and all of her
and everything else,
her problems to it too, as a character, like that is just ripe for scenery chewing.
She was amazing in this film, and knowing that he also directed Queen of Earth, where she was a very different character that was also I don't even want to say
that might come up later, so let's say that for discussion in just a minute here. Right. So we'll be right back with our Cedarly 3 picks this week, inspired by her smell and apparently specifically Elizabeth Moss's character, with some of our favorite self-destructive characters throughout film history. A few other special events this week to let you know about. The Fathom Events and Turner Classic Movies series rolls along with True Grit, its 50th anniversary. This is the classic western starring John Wayne. It'll be on the big screen May 5th at 1 p.m. and again May 8th at 7 p.m.
And then we're also continuing our National Theater Live series with the new stage production of All About Eve. This is May 7th at 7 p.m. This stars Gillian Anderson and Lily James in the stage adaptation of the classic film that originally starred Bette Davis.
Our last special event to let you know about is for all you diehard Lord of the Rings and Tolkien fans out there. We have the event is Tolkien, live from the Montclair Film Festival with Stephen Colbert on May 7th at 7 p.m. This is a special advance showing of the fictional film Tolkien, based on the life of the author. It's played by Nicholas Hoult. The Montclair Film Festival, we're going to be doing it. Would you say it's a
live streaming event
here at the theater, in which Nicholas Hoult, Lily Collins, the director of the film, and it's going to be moderated by, the press release says, superfan Stephen Colbert. So that will be following the film. So the film will open next week, but this is an advance show of the film with a simulcast here in the theater with a Q&A afterwards. So stick around after the film for that special event. So each week we like to take inspiration from one of the new films opening at the theater and suggest 3 films to broaden your cinematic horizon. As we just mentioned a couple of moments ago, this was inspired this week by Her Smell, and Elizabeth Moss's central performance is of a very self-destructive punk rocker. And if you're looking at self-destructive characters in movies, like, did you have a specific description in your mind that you were heading to with? Or
I was trying to pick characters that, in my mind, fit it in different ways.
Okay.
Because I think there's so many choices. You could just do it just about like a certain kind of addiction or things like that.
Right.
So I was just trying to mix it up and have a selection of different types of self-destruction.
Because I was, a couple quick Google searches to get my, get my brainstorming going. Right. It listed a lot of stuff that I was like, they weren't self-destructive the way I guess I was picturing it. So I kind of had to define it, because it was like in Her Smell, like, she's not necessarily choosing to be self-destructive. It's just more of like her character's like
she's
impulses
out of control,
and out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whereas like some of the other quick lists that came up with a Google search were like, no, those are people that are kind of deciding to be self-destructive. Like it's kind of different there. So I kind of with the different shades of that as well on my list.
All right, so what's the first one?
What a surprise! It's Queen of Earth, as we mentioned just a couple moments ago. Alex Ross Perry. It's 2 films ago for him, in which it's one of like the most standout films of just like a degrading mental state of any character I've seen on film. And it almost in like a Madeline's Madeline kind of way, where it places the viewer in the mental state, I think, very well, of Elizabeth Moss's character. Also, it's her and Catherine Waterston is like it's a retreat out to like, I think it's like her family's like cabin they have nearby in the woods. So it's very isolated already. So it's not like she's degrading in front of our eyes in a big public arena the way she is in Her Smell, like with friends, colleagues out in public performances. This is just, it's 2 female characters.
It's very Bergman-esque.
Oh, very Bergman-esque. Yeah, different visual style than Bergman.
But I mean, it has that same sort of
very
emotional
intimate
resonance to it. So,
the interiors or the exteriors and everything else. So yeah, if you haven't seen Queen of Earth, it's definitely one to watch, especially if you're seeing Her Smell. It'd be an exhausting double feature, but it'd be pretty amazing.
And it would make you realize Elizabeth Moss is amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Well, the first film on my list I went for Shame by Steve McQueen, which is Michael Fassbender's film from 2011, where it's about a man whose sexual addiction is kind of his self-destructive thing that he just can't get control of and doesn't even want to in a way. So I just thought that was a great performance and, just one of those movies where when you have no control over yourself and the things that it leads you to do and the terrible decisions that it causes in your life, it's just a film that really stuck with me.
I was going to say that's one that the character's not in control of impulses.
Right.
So, yeah,
yes,
one of those.
Exactly.
Back in the day, they would do like a film, like Criterion would do like a film historian would do a commentary track on certain movies, like the unrelated to like working on the movie or anything.
Right.
I want to see Shame with a Dr. Ruth commentary.
My God. That would be amazing.
Or I want to hear that, I guess, not to see it, but like see Shame with a Dr. Ruth commentary track.
100% I'd be behind that. We should crowdfund that.
I was going to say, let's get Criterion on the phone right now and get that one suggested. But
and what's next on your list?
I almost I did several versions of this list because there were just so many films, and at one point I was going to name it like the Werner Herzog Memorial List because like he kind of specializes in that. So I didn't put any Herzog movies on there. So quick shout out to his self-destructive characters throughout the years, both in documentary and in fiction form. But I think it really kind of has to be the Darren Aronofsky list because it kind of that's the way it ended up being for me. Like I'm not doing all Darren Aronofsky films, but I went with Requiem for a Dream. Although Pi was the first movie of his I saw in the theater, but Requiem for a Dream just like
that's a gut punch.
Oh my gosh! Like it was one of those like I was just sitting through all the credits because like I could not be in public then. It was just like I need an hour or two just solo because it's 4 different types of self-destructive behavior that are kind of not half in control, half not in control because substances kind of take over, but they're already personalities that are addictive by nature anyway and weren't going to end well with or without substances, I don't think.
It's, one of my favorite movies, honestly, in a weird way, but it's not a movie that you're ever really like, oh, I think I'll just pop that in and watch it again.
Right.
And, I program our Late Shift series, and a few years ago I think we showed it out at the Apollo.
I was saying, not here. I would have been here.
And I was like, I think it'll work. I think people, but not a lot of people went to see it just because I think it's just not a movie. People are like, oh, let's go watch that again. That was fun,
right.
So like, it's just not a movie that I think a lot of people want to
revisit.
And it's kind of like the Irreversible syndrome where it's such a great movie, but it's such a kind of unpleasant experience that you're not always in the mood for it.
Right.
For sure.
And if you're in the mood for it, it's like on your own terms, not like it's this one show at, one time at this theater. You might not be in the mood for it that day.
That is true. Well, the next film on my list, I went back to a classic film that a lot of people probably have never seen. It's from 1936 by Dorothy Arzner, and it's Craig's Wife, starring Rosalind Russell. Since anytime I can work in a Rosalind Russell movie, I will try to. And Craig's Wife was, of course, remade later as Harriet Craig, starring Joan Crawford, but I prefer the Rosalind Russell version, which is about a woman who's so obsessed with her home and the perfection of her house that it ruins her life. She is self-destructive in her perception of perfection.
Right.
So it's a completely different kind of way to self-destruct yourself.
Yeah.
Most of these other films are about people literally like ending up in the gutter or, like
they're dead
just
or worse.
ruining
Whatever.
everything.
Yeah.
Whereas this is a woman whose life is all about keeping her perfect world.
Right.
Like no one can move anything in her house. You can't really live in her house. And eventually her husband, again, spoiler alert, I don't know if you can say
from a 1930s film. No, you're fine.
He can't live in that world anymore.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you just can't live in that sort of someone else's glass
attempt at perfection kind of thing. Yeah.
But it's a great film if you've never seen it. It's really and a very different performance by Rosalind Russell, since a lot of times she's seen as this, His Girl Friday kind of character. To play this kind of like icy woman
obsessive,
is very different, and it's a great performance and a really good film.
Especially in that era too, because once you got known as like one kind of character type in that studio system, that was just like, oh, we need like the quirky, best friend, grab, whoever, and
she can do a lot of
being able to like
things.
break out and actually get something else, on film is pretty stellar.
And it's also, it's unique in that it's a film that's directed by a woman, and she was Dorothy Arzner was really the only female director working for the major studios at that time too. So it's very rare to have like a female directed film about this very strong female character.
Right.
That's also sort of not a very positive female character,
but still.
But it's a great movie.
Yeah. My last one was the first one that came to mind when we mentioned this topic, which is Jack Torrance in The Shining, which again, that's one of those like, is that outside forces? Is that already there? Because it's Jack Nicholson, and the first time you see him, he already looks like a maniac.
Right.
because it's Jack Nicholson in the 70s, so it's kind of there. But then, is it The Overlook? Is it something that was already in him that's being reawakened? Is it not? And I don't know. It's The Shining. There's not much to say about it. It's just it was the first thing that came to mind. I was like, I can't not include that one. It was like doing Woodstock on music documentaries. Like, no, you got to talk about. It's when it's like, it's totally kind of one of the bars that are set for.
Well, to that same point, the first one that popped into my mind originally was not going to talk about, but now I think I am because I felt like, is it too obvious of a choice? But I don't know that it is.
Okay.
And you mentioned Werner Herzog earlier.
Oh yeah.
Who remade this film? But I'm going to talk about Abel Ferrara's Bad Lieutenant.
Oh yes,
which to me is a quintessential self-destructive character.
Yeah.
I mean, just right in the title, Bad Lieutenant, and Harvey, it has one of the great performances by Harvey Keitel.
Yeah.
And it is just an unsettling movie. It's just good and creepy in all the right ways about, the most corrupt, terrible
all the right ways? I know what you mean, but yeah.
And then actually the remake isn't bad either.
No, it's really interesting.
It's an interesting, and if you're going to remake it, obviously you have to put Nicolas Cage in that role.
100%.
But, so I'm not one of those people that doesn't think you should ever remake a movie. And if you're going to remake one, I think Werner Herzog with Nicolas Cage is the way to do it.
I was going to say, when they first heard they're remaking Bad Lieutenant, I was like, why? Who? Don't? What's going on? But then it's like Werner Herzog, Nicolas Cage, Val Kilmer's in there too, I believe. And I was like, I'm totally on board with this. Yeah, okay. I didn't know I wanted to see it, but
I would
do now.
say that Abel Ferrara's original is a better film and has a lot more to it.
Yeah.
A lot more to recommend about it. So,
which, speaking of which, just going back to the con coverage real quick, Abel Ferrara's got technically 4 movies coming out this calendar year. Yeah. So you're going to be hearing that name probably a lot more in the coming months. Well, next week's episode, we will be discussing 3 new films as of right now: Palms, Red Joan, and Tolkien. So next week's Cedar Lee 3 list is inspired by Red Joan, the new Judi Dench spy thriller. So we're going to be doing spy films. If you have any picks that you'd like to send our way, we are at Cedar Lee Theater with an RE using the hashtag CedarLee3, the number 3. As always, thank you for tuning in to Cedar Lee Radio and lending us your ears this week. All the music heard on the show is original music written by Grant Heineman and performed by the New Heights Jazz Ensemble, used with their permission, of course. Visit clevelandcinemas.com for correct showtimes and to purchase advance tickets. Also, there are links in the show notes. You can use those if you'd like as well. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We are at Cedar Lee Theater, spelled with an R-E at the end because we're fancy like that. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, and while you're subscribing, leave us a rating and review, or better yet, tell a fellow film geek about the show. We'll see you at the movies.